taking care of yourself, it doesn't mean you don't work with intensity. In fact, when we launched Thrive and we're interviewing people to hire, we realized early on that there were people who thought, oh, they could go work for Thrive and it would be like chilling under the mango tree. So we had to explain to them, no, we're a very ambitious, high-charging company. And if you want to chill under the mango tree, that's not a good place to be. And we tell everybody there will be times when you have to deliver a product or meet a deadline and you may have to work late or work a weekend. But what we do then, we give people Thrive time immediately after. Like if you've worked extra hard to meet a deadline, then take Thrive time to recharge. And Stephen, that's actually good for the business because very often people get sick or make their biggest mistakes when they are completely depleted. Mm-hmm. So it's not about lack of intensity. It's about taking time to refuel, recharge, and be at your best.
Do you think this collective delusion that you describe, which I'm defining as this a notion that you have to sacrifice your well-being to be successful?
Yes.
Who is it letting down more, men or women?
Okay. Obviously, there are more men who've succeeded, and therefore there are numerically more men who believe and practice that. But I think a lot of women too, who want to make sure they're not seen as being on the mommy track or not being as passionate or intense about their work, have bought into the delusion. But what I found very interesting is to try and see what was the beginning of that delusion. And I trace it back to the first industrial revolution, when people started revering machines. And after machines, software. And what is basically the essence of machines and software? No downtime. You have Salesforce bringing out a new piece of software and saying 99.99999% uptime. Well, the human operating system is different. For the human operating system, downtime is a feature, not a bug. And the science is so clear and unequivocal about it.
Is that why you came up with this notion called the third women's revolution? What is the third women's revolution?
The first women's revolution was about giving us the vote. Mm-hmm. The second women's revolution was about equal pay and equal opportunities. The third women's revolution was about making it clear that we can succeed without burning out, that we don't have to sacrifice our well-being, our relationships on the altar of success. And I believe that as we're doing it now, we're in the middle of it, and a lot of men are a big part of it, that it's good for everybody. I mean, look at the number of men who end up with heart attacks, high cholesterol, hypertension, all because they think that's the only way to succeed.
The traditional models don't work for women because women burn out faster than men. Is that true?
I don't think women burn out faster than men. Most women, first of all, still do the bulk of work at home in terms of children and child. That we theoretically believe that men are equally engaged, but the data doesn't bear that out. But what I was saying in Thrive, I see you're holding the Thrive book, is really about that third metric of success. I obviously like thirds. If you think of the first two metrics of success, money and power/status, and most people think that's life. Mm-hmm. Well, it's not. It's like trying to sit on a two-legged stool. Sooner or later, you fall off. The third leg of the stool is everything else. It's our health and well-being. It's our capacity to connect with ourselves and our wisdom. It's our capacity for a sense of wonder and the mystery of life and the small joys of life, and then giving. So these four other areas are what make a complete and whole life.
In Thrive, there's a stat which stood out to me. It says women in stressful jobs have a 40% increased risk of heart disease and a 60% greater risk of diabetes, which is a pretty shocking stat.
Yes.
And it begs the question, why?
One of the reasons is that women internalize mistakes more. What I said about myself is true about many successful women. We are ruminators. We tend to go over and over in our minds any mistake we made. And men have a much easier time just moving on. They have a much easier time being Roger Federer. So that's a big problem. The other is this perfectionism. And the fact that they still have a larger percentage of work at home. And even if they get a lot of help from their partner, the mind share. They still are thinking, oh, my partner is picking up the child for the doctor's appointment, but I still think about it.
Mm-hmm. You're still holding that burden, whereas maybe men don't always hold it in such a way. It's interesting that you reference giving as being one of the most important elements of the third metric. I read a study in the book that says a 2013 study by the University of Wisconsin found that employees who give back to society, for example, through volunteering, are less likely to quit their job, which I thought was really interesting as an employer, as a way to drive retention in the team. But I also pondered why that might be. Why is it that when people give, they're more likely to stay in their job?
Well, if you think of what makes a fulfilling life, what gives you meaning and purpose and all the things that make it more likely that a company culture will succeed. If you're in a company culture that encourages giving, at Thrive, we have giving days, we match donations, and this creates a kind of giving culture which makes it more likely that people working in that company are going to feel fulfilled. Because fulfillment is not just a function of your job, it's a function of everything around it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so if you feel fulfilled, you'll just be happier in your life and you'll be less likely to want to change things.
Exactly, because very often, if you're unhappy in your life, changing the job might be the easiest thing that you think may change outcomes.
When you had your burnout diagnosis, did that change anything for you?
Everything.
How quickly did it change?
So quickly.
Really?
It's pretty dramatic when you break your cheekbone. And it's equally dramatic when you spend a lot of time in doctors' waiting rooms, wondering what's wrong with you. So yes, it changed a lot of things. The keystone habit that it changed was sleep.
Okay.
And then, as I studied the phenomenon of burnout and talked to a lot of scientists and wrote a sleep book, it became very clear that there are 5 critical behaviors, 5 daily behaviors that affect our health, both physical health and mental health. Sleep, food, what we eat. Again, just keeping it simple. Can we reduce ultra-processed foods? Can we reduce sugar? Movement, exercise, stress management, and connection. Connection to ourselves, connection with each other. So these 5 behaviors now, Stephen, are more critical to our health and our longevity than genes and medical care.
Mm-hmm.
Genes, there's nothing we can do about it. Medical care obviously is imperative when we're really sick, but health is really what happens between doctor visits. like what we do every day. Because just think of it, the idea that you have your annual physical and that's your health care. What are you doing every day? Are you stressed out? Are you sleep deprived? Are you eating junk?
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.